Imagine standing in a silent house at 3 o'clock in the morning, listening to a rhythmic, desperate scratching sound cutting through the darkness. If you are a pet parent, you know exactly what that sound does to your stomach. It is a biological distress signal, a sign that your companion is trapped in a cycle of constant physical irritation. Most of us instinctively drive straight to the clinic, ready to spend hundreds on temporary steroid shots or synthetic topical drops. But what if the actual physiological master switch to deactivate the cellular panic isn't found in a laboratory, but sitting right next to your morning coffee? Behavioral research and animal science suggest that when a dog is caught in a chronic scratch cycle, their nervous system enters a state of persistent hyperarousal. They aren't just dealing with a surface itch, their brain is processing a continuous alarm loop. By the end of this breakdown, you will understand exactly how the mechanics of canine biology work from the inside out, and how a few precise, clean adjustments inside your kitchen can build a natural, defensive ecosystem for your companion. Let's begin with the immediate crisis. When a dog experiences a localized, angry flare-up, the biological tissue is suffering from acute heat and microscopic cellular tears. The common instinct is to apply heavy, medicated drying agents to the area. But here is where almost everyone gets the science wrong. Forcing inflamed tissue to dry out rapidly causes the surface cells to crack, which creates a prime pathway for opportunistic environmental bacteria to colonize the deep layers of the skin. To break this loop instantly, the tissue requires a highly bioavailable lipid barrier that cools the local nerve endings on contact. Behavioral science shows that lowering the localized temperature of the skin immediately reduces the neurological urge to scratch, interrupting the trauma cycle. A highly effective approach is a gentle application of unrefined, cold-pressed raw coconut oil. The solid lipids melt at skin temperature, absorbing into the tissue to deliver high concentrations of native lauric acid, an organic compound that natively disrupts the cellular membranes of unwanted surface microbes. And if your dog immediately tries to clean it off with their tongue, it acts as a highly beneficial, completely non-toxic internal nutrient. But what happens if the issue isn't a localized red spot? What if your dog is exhibiting a highly distinct, savory odor that smells exactly like corn chips, particularly around their lower paws and inner ear flaps? Almost nobody talks about this, but that specific scent is not dirt, and it is not a basic environmental allergy. It is the metabolic signature of a microorganism called Malassezia. This specialized yeast population thrives natively in warm, humid microclimates, such as the hidden spaces between a dog's toe pads. When the immune system fluctuates, this organism multiplies exponentially, creating a deep, maddening crawl that drives animals to compulsively chew their paws. To neutralize this colonization, we have to look at the strict pH requirements of the skin. This specific yeast species requires a perfectly neutral environment to expand. If you shift that surface chemistry even slightly toward an acidic profile, the environment becomes completely uninhabitable for the organism. By utilizing a raw apple cider vinegar rinse, diluted precisely at a 50-50 ratio with lukewarm water, you cleanly drop the surface pH. For dogs dealing with intense paw irritation, a brief 2-minute structural soak in this solution completely alters the localized ecosystem, shutting down the yeast population at the root. However, a critical safety boundary must be kept in mind. Never introduce an acidic liquid if the dog has chewed their paws until the tissue is raw or bleeding, as it will cause immediate discomfort. Use it strictly on intact, unbroken skin. Now, what if the irritation isn't localized to the paws? What if the entire body is reacting, causing the animal to constantly roll across the floor in frustration? When a full-body crisis occurs, running a warm, soothing bath seems like the most empathetic response. But what most people don't realize is that warm water acts as a powerful vasodilator, expanding the blood vessels near the surface and rushing a wave of inflammatory cells straight to the skin. The moment your dog exits a warm bath, the systemic irritation actually multiplies by 10. The water must always be cool to lukewarm. To turn a basic wash into an absolute neurological shield, you can look directly inside your pantry for whole, unflavored breakfast oats. When these raw grains are processed in a standard blender until they turn into a cloud of ultrafine microscopic dust, their physical properties completely change. This creates what material science calls a colloidal suspension when mixed into a water bath. When your companion submerses in this milky mixture for 10 full minutes, active organic compounds called avenanthramides, along with natural plant polysaccharides, bind directly to the skin cells. They create a physical, invisible film that seals in deep cellular hydration, and mechanically draws out the trapped tissue heat. When the time is up, avoid rough towel friction, simply pat them dry and let that microscopic defensive barrier stay entirely intact on the coat. Sometimes, however, the scratching persists even after the skin has completely healed. This happens because the canine brain can develop a deep behavioral habit of licking or chewing out of sheer anxiety or boredom. To interrupt this cognitive loop, we can exploit a fascinating quirk of canine neurology. The physical action of repetitive, structured chewing triggers a steady release of endorphins and dopamine inside the brain, which effectively overrides minor sensory irritation. Taking a large, solid raw carrot and freezing it completely provides a firm, long-lasting tactile challenge. It shifts their mental focus away from the body, exercises the jaw safely, and supplies a clean source of vitamins without introducing problematic processed fillers. Now that the surface fire is out, we must transition to long-term defense. Stay with me, because this next part completely shifts how we look at external parasites like fleas and ticks. The traditional approach to pest management relies heavily on systemic chemical drops designed to keep an animal's bloodstream highly toxic to insects. While this is effective at terminating a bug after it bites, many modern pet parents want to explore natural solutions that prevent a parasite from ever wanting to land on their companion in the first place. To achieve this, we have to understand exactly how insects choose their targets. Parasites do not hunt using highly developed visual clarity. Instead, they navigate their world almost entirely through thermal tracking and chemical detection, identifying hosts by sensing the natural plumes of carbon dioxide and lactic acid radiating off of mammal skin cells. If we can naturally alter or mask that specific chemical signature, the parasite's tracking system completely fails. This is where pure nutritional brewer's yeast becomes an exceptional internal asset. Packed with water-soluble B-complex vitamins. When a small amount is regularly metabolized in the diet, the excess compounds are subtly excreted outward through the skin cells and specialized sweat pads. Human noses cannot detect this minor shift at all, but to a searching tick or flea, the sudden presence of these metabolized vitamins transforms a prime target into something that smells bitter and toxic. They will literally pass by or drop off immediately, rather than anchor themselves to the coat. You can easily optimize this natural scent shield by incorporating a microscopic pinch of dried culinary rosemary into their meals, which introduces trace aromatic compounds that further confuse the tracking instincts of invasive pests. But what if a persistent insect manages to find its way onto the coat anyway? Our secondary line of internal defense is to alter the flavor profile of the blood itself. By integrating a minor splash of raw apple cider vinegar or a tiny dusting of pure turmeric powder directly into their daily bowl, you introduce natural components that interact with the taste profile of the skin's surface secretions. While completely imperceptible to your companion, it acts as a sharp, sour deterrent to a biting insect, forcing them to disengage cleanly before a deep bite can take hold. If you suspect your companion has already encountered pests outdoors, we also need to look at disrupting potential life cycles within their immediate environment. A remarkably elegant answer lies inside raw, unsalted pumpkin seeds. In plant biology, these specific seeds contain a unique, naturally occurring amino acid compound called cucurbitin. This compound serves as a mild, natural paralytic agent against primitive internal and external parasite structures. When these whole seeds are ground down into a fine meal and added to the diet, the active components assist the digestive system while depositing trace organic residue into the natural dander shed by the dog. This makes the surrounding bedding environment highly unfavorable for developing flea larvae, breaking the reproductive chain cleanly without the use of harsh synthetics. But here is the strange part that most commercial pet food manufacturing campaigns will never openly discuss. The vast majority of chronic, year-round skin issues have absolutely nothing to do with environmental factors like grass, pollen, or dust. It begins deep inside the lining of the stomach. The canine digestive tract is evolutionarily optimized to process proteins and highly bioavailable animal fats. However, many mass-produced dry foods rely heavily on affordable, shelf-stable binders like corn, wheat, white potatoes, and dense starches to hold the kibble together. The moment these heavy carbohydrates hit the stomach, the dog's internal enzymes rapidly break them down into simple sugars. And sugar is the absolute favorite fuel source for systemic yeast and bad bacteria. Over time, this constant influx of sugar creates a profound imbalance in the delicate gut microbiome, leading to a state of chronic internal inflammation. When the immune system is kept on permanent high alert, the body begins aggressively overreacting to completely benign everyday particles. That internal battle is expressed outwardly as red, flaky, intensely itchy skin. If you want to resolve the irritation for good, you have to stop chasing the symptoms on the outside and repair the internal foundation. You must introduce active, beneficial microflora to crowd out the opportunistic yeast populations. The most streamlined way to do this is by adding a single spoonful of completely unflavored, unsweetened milk kefir or plain, traditional live-culture yogurt directly into their daily meal. These fermented foods deliver a massive wave of active, beneficial bacteria that colonize the digestive tract, actively lowering systemic inflammation and cutting off the primary nutrient supply to the yeast populations, causing that unmistakable corn chip odor. However, please listen closely to a critical safety warning. When sourcing any yogurt, kefir, or peanut butter for your companion, you must rigorously audit the ingredient panel for a highly dangerous substitute sugar called xylitol, which is frequently masked on modern labels as birch sugar. This compound causes an immediate, catastrophic drop in canine blood sugar and liver function. You must ensure your selections contain absolutely zero artificial sweeteners or sugar alternatives. Our final internal adjustment addresses how we help the body actively grow resilient skin tissue. Did you know that every 21 days, a dog's body completely sheds and replaces its entire outer layer of skin cells? This means that every 3 weeks, you are handed a clean biological slate to construct an ultra-strong coat of physical armor. But to build healthy, flexible skin cells that resist cracking and reject pest penetration, the body requires fresh, unoxidized fats, specifically omega-3 fatty acids and pure collagen. If your dog eats dry food from a bag that has been opened and exposed to oxygen for longer than 2 weeks, the healthy fats natively sprayed onto that food have likely oxidized and turned stale. To counter this, we need to inject raw, vibrant lipids back into the bowl. The single most efficient and budget-friendly method is to pick up a simple tin of sardines packed strictly in plain water with no added sodium. Twice a week, take one single sardine, mash it down with a fork, and mix it directly into their food. This provides an absolute powerhouse dose of clean EPA and DHA fatty acids. If your dog is particularly averse to seafood, a simple, unseasoned cooked egg or a splash of home-prepared, unseasoned bone broth works wonders. Just remember a quick kitchen rule: never use pre-packaged human bone broths or commercial stocks from the grocery aisle. These are almost universally simmered with concentrated onions and garlic, both of which are highly toxic to canine red blood cells. Keep it beautifully simple. Boil plain beef or poultry bones in pure water right at home. We have just moved through an immense library of biological information, spanning from apple cider vinegar to raw pumpkin seeds and cold-pressed lipids. It is completely natural to look at this list and feel a bit overwhelmed, wondering how you could possibly balance all of these variables in a single morning routine. But here is the golden rule that will save you time, money, and stress. You should never use all of these ingredients at the exact same time. If you were to introduce 6 or 7 rich, active kitchen ingredients into your dog's bowl tomorrow morning, their digestive system would experience immediate sensory overload, likely resulting in an upset stomach. True holistic health thrives on the concept of structured rotation. You don't consume the exact same identical food items every single afternoon, and your dog's internal microbiome shouldn't either. To make this effortless, use a simple 3-part bowl formula. Every single day when you prepare their standard base meal, simply reduce their main food portion by a tiny fraction to account for the fresh calories, and add exactly 3 targeted items from your kitchen. First, pick one single skin builder. One day it might be a clean cooked egg. A few days later, it could be a mashed sardine or a splash of home-cooked broth. Second, select one gut helper, such as a spoonful of plain live yogurt, milk kefir, or a dollop of pure pumpkin puree. Third, add one active bug shield, like a minor pinch of Brewer's yeast or a tiny splash of raw apple cider vinegar. That is the entire process. You simply rotate through these options depending on what you have stocked in your refrigerator or pantry that week. It adds less than 15 seconds to your routine, costs pennies compared to ongoing clinical prescriptions, and addresses the actual root architecture of their health. Navigating chronic skin issues and persistent seasonal pests is undoubtedly one of the most frustrating, exhausting chapters of being a pet parent. It makes us feel incredibly stuck. But by choosing to step back, question the surface symptoms, and explore how their internal biology actually functions, you are showing incredible dedication to their well-being. If these insights gave you a completely fresh perspective on how to support your companion, Take a moment to share this with a fellow dog lover who is tired of the midnight scratching cycle. Let's grow our community's knowledge together. I'd love to know down in the comments, are you currently battling that stubborn corn chip paw smell or looking to step away from chemical pest drops this season? Which of these simple pantry items are you going to test out first? I jump into the comments daily to read your stories and support your journey. Until next time, keep observing, trust your native instincts, and give your companion an extra itch-free scratch right behind the ears for me tonight. Stay safe out there.